You know, it turns out that we don't have a patent on language, even though we're seriously wired for it, we humans. But there's plenty of other species of animals that communicate. Bees communicate with certain wing flapping patterns and movements. Prairie dogs have been known, they've isolated different sounds that they make to indicate danger from above or danger, on land. Those are just two simple examples that I think of. And it turns out that even plants communicate with each other. One example, this is mind-blowing. There's a tree, I forget which one it is, that has a natural predator, like a caterpillar that eats all of its leaves. And it turns out that when the infestation first starts and the caterpillar eats leaves from a single tree, that tree will send out through the air, not a scent, but some kind of chemical messaging to the neighboring trees to warn them about the caterpillars. And they in turn change their own chemistry to produce either a taste that is distasteful to the caterpillars and even toxic to them. So how does one explain that? That almost sounds like consciousness, doesn't it? There's this great episode of Oprah show where this woman, she's known as the baby whisperer, who understands there are certain universal types of crying that babies do that communicate different things. She demonstrates with a group of mothers who, when their young babies are crying, they don't really know what to do, but she helps them identify what it is. And this is learnable and teachable. And also, I remember my granddaughters, when they were babies, learned how to sign language before they could speak. They were able to point to their mouth when they were hungry before they could say anything. And they knew they were communicating, which reminds me of the gorilla Coco, who knew, I forget how many words she knew how to sign language and was able to put sentences together and showed herself to be not just like a playful toddler mentality, but actually like a deep, playful toddler. There's a great video on YouTube where she's interacting with Robin Williams, where she asks him to tickle her, and then she tickles him. Sublime. As a species, we humans are wired for language. We are so eager to communicate that we pick up and absorb the breathing and wind patterns in and out of the words that are spoken to us that are so imbibed with meaning from the adult people in our lives that we learn these things. And then we get to the point where I think in language. I grew up in Austria, and my native tongue was actually German. I had little neighborhood friends. I lived there till I was 5 years old. And I have somewhere in me this really primitive, simple kid level understanding of German. And I find myself understanding things and not really knowing how or why I understand them. And some things I understand before I even have to translate it into English. I started speaking English when I was very young, at least 5, and that's been my main thing ever since. But somewhere in there, I marvel that I understand another language to some degree. But I have to tell you, I'm fascinated with when I go to a country where I don't speak the language and I see written things, sometimes the alphabet is very similar. We're the only species that has written language, written communication, where we make little squiggles on paper or on stone or something, and then we understand the communication. It's totally fascinating. And I'm at the point, and I bet you are too, when I see a word written in English, I cannot not read it. I don't see English alphabet letters the way I see like Greek letters or Russian or Thai letters, which look just like squiggles to me. When I see English written, I cannot not read it. I see the words. Even if I don't know the word, I still see it as a word, not just squiggles. Yeah, I also want to mention there's a dog. I saw this on YouTube. Hey, YouTube is a great resource of things I wouldn't otherwise know about. But there's this dog in, I think it lives in Germany, that knows like 250 words. And they did a double-blind study. So the speaker of the words wasn't just its owner, as if there was some nonverbal communication instead of actually knowing the word. They put the speaker behind the screen so the dog couldn't see any nonverbal cues. And the dog would get one of 250 different toys just based on the word. How awesome is that? And then there's some African gray, I forget his or her name, who seemed to be able to not only understand language and words, but able to reason and come up with answers to questions. Oh yeah, here's another thing. When I talk about being thinking in the language, there's words in the Inuit language for different kinds of precipitation. You know, we have words in English like snow, rain, sleet, drizzle, hail, and we have a good handful of words that describe precipitation. But in the Inuit language, there's many, many more, which I guess refer to the nuances of the different kinds of snow or something. How awesome is that? All right, so I just want to say language is a funny thing. In a way, we're limited by our language. And in another way, language frees us up because there's poetry, which sort of juxtaposes different linguistic sounds and meanings in a way that really touches our heart and blows our mind. And learning is so linked with language. And I love it when people put things together in ways that I hadn't thought of myself. It's so wonderful. Language. Bye.